I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Like in here.
Oh.
Oh. Now I can.
It's a bit funky. You're good now?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Wow, I love this setup.
It's nice, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Comfy.
So pro.
Well, we're very professional.
Yeah.
Very
God.
professional.
Pro over here.
Well, we're back
Welcome
to another episode
of
as
Woo As
You
Want with
Hi.
What?
My name is Leslie Galbraith, and I'm an astrologer.
Yay! With Leslie
And Celine,
and Jeremiah.
our second guest.
Yes!
Thank you very much for having me here.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're psyched.
We're super excited that you're here. And we're glad this all worked out. So,
Yeah, and we're cozy. We're ready to roll.
cozy, comfy, ready to roll. This is episode 15.
Yes.
Have you listened to any of these, by the way?
No, I apologize.
That's okay.
No, absolutely.
We're just going to cut right now and you can leave. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
So, thanks a lot for coming.
I put it on my podcast queue.
Oh, please. That's totally cool. That's totally cool. I was just curious. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So, Leslie, how do you say your last name?
Oh, Galbraith.
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 Okay.
Leslie Galbraith. Yeah.
So, Leslie Galbraith, do you want to introduce yourself? Let us know what you do.
Yes. I am an astrologer, and I have a practice here in New York City. So I read natal birth charts, and what I do is work with people to help them remember themselves.
What a description. That's amazing.
And I have been practicing. I really started this business full on in 2013. I started studying in 2009. And now I talk to people all over the world. I see clients here in New York. I teach workshops on how to read your birth chart. And
cool.
yeah, that has been super exciting for me because what I do is bring everyone into a room with all of their charts, and I project my chart as the example.
Oh.
And it's about a 2-hour workshop, and we walk through what are you looking at when you look at a birth chart. Most people look at it and looks like a foreign language in Chinese, and it's very kind of confusing.
Right.
But once you break it down, it can be also very simple. And but you have to kind of understand what you're looking at. So I walk people through how to like look at what their chart is.
Okay.
So that they can go and explore on their own in depth more of their own energies.
Huh. Interesting.
How vulnerable of you.
I am an example in the class, and
It's awesome.
I often make a lot of fun of myself.
Really?
Well, you got to have humor, right?
And once this is the moment, because it's a lot of information, but it's really sparked to get people, their energy, thinking about it in a different way, in the right brain and the left brain, and visualizing. And when I notice it just gets a little quiet, I crack a really silly joke about my own chart, and then everybody comes right back into the room. So it is actually very vulnerable to do that.
Yeah.
And often at the end of class, people come up to me and they're like, wow, like your story, or I identify with this, or because it really kind of pulls people in to experience what's going on in their own way, and to kind of, not feel their own vulnerability, because I'm kind of the example for that. And in that class, everyone shares a little bit about their chart.
Oh, cool.
So you kind of really learn just, little basic things about your elements and things like this. But then you hear everyone else in the class and kind of what they experience too. So
Cool.
Nice.
yeah, it's a fun way to learn.
Well, so why don't you tell us a little bit how you started becoming like into astrology and where you started all of this stuff? Because you've told me before a little bit, and it's a pretty interesting story. And Jeremiah doesn't know.
Yeah, I like looked you up, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do some research before the podcast, but I actually really just want to know.
Yeah,
in the moment.
Do any research.
I didn't. I did actually.
He knows nothing.
But I wanted to experience it with our listeners. So
Well,
yeah.
there's not much you would probably find if you look at me. Because I usually am a pretty private person, so I don't have a lot of stuff out there. Astrology found me. I just like to say that it kind of found me.
Okay.
I grew up in a family that was very religious, Catholic. And church God, and as a young child, I just gravitated it to so much, like the ceremony and the incense and the message. And when I got to be about in 6th grade, I was like, oh, wait a minute here, because at that time there was this huge story came out about all of the priests molesting the boys in the school.
Okay.
Oh.
And at that time, I was like, wait a minute. Like, this is like this beautiful message.
Yeah.
And then these people are behaving like this. So I kind of had this crazy existential crisis in like 6th grade. And I was just like, what is going on here? And at that time, I just said to my mom and dad, I can't go back to that place.
Wow.
And so
where was this?
This was growing up outside of just north of Milwaukee.
Okay.
In a town called Brown Deer, just a suburb. It was right at the edge of the cornfield, so it was interesting because it was a suburb on one level, but then the end of the road was just farmland.
Wow.
So I got this really interesting mix of like kind of city, suburb, go into the Milwaukee downtown, and then nature. And just playing in the fields.
Cool.
So at that time, I kind of was like, this was really intense kind of experience. And also, my parents at that time started to become really interested in folk art.
Cool.
And that kind of started this really interesting journey for me of connection to energy outside the 5 senses.
So you were 12, right? 6th grade.
Yeah, right around that time.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and so at that time, we also moved to a house that was built in 1840.
Oh, wow.
So I started to get connected to energies. And one of the first experiences I had of
It's a ghost story.
other energies is the lady of the house.
Stop it.
That I grew up with. That house had been in that family for over 200 years. And we were the first family to take over that house after she had passed. And I have a very vivid just memory of waking up and her sitting in a rocking chair in the corner, and that kind of almost cliche vision of like fuzzy bright light and like, you know, ghost energy. And remember being like, oh, okay, hi, you know, and this kind of connection to energy. And there was a lot of other things that happened. I mean, we say haunted, but like, you know, like there were a lot of things that happened in that house where as a kid starting to grow up, I kind of was like, oh, this is weird, or like, what's going on here? And then I'm like, oh, in some way there's something else here. There's some other energy.
But you weren't, it doesn't sound like you were very afraid of any of this.
No, being a
Interesting.
Pisces, I think I was just like, oh,
like, cool.
you know, and I didn't even know what that meant at that time, but I was just like, oh, right. Like, you know,
This makes sense.
yeah, this makes sense.
Obviously, this exists, and this is
Yeah.
part of the world.
This is part of the world. It's
Yeah.
our senses and what's outside the realm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then because my parents were so interested in antiques and folk art and all this stuff, we had a lot of old furniture, and we would go to a lot of old places. And,
Okay.
and you know, a lot of people talk about energies that are connected to things, connected
Yeah.
to places,
Right,
And
right.
energies that... So that also was kind of an experience for me.
Yeah.
early. But I was never, as a child, into astrology. There wasn't really any of that exposure of it. Then I really kind of excelled at math in school. And I thought I was going to study mechanical engineering.
Really?
Wow.
And math
boy.
was a huge part of my, I was just really good at math. Well, now, later, looking at an astrology chart, there's so much math involved, right?
Yeah.
Mathematical.
So at that moment, I was like, I'm going to do this. And I worked in high school at a company. I'd leave high school and go work for a company who designed seats for Harley Davidsons and worked in their engineering department. And then in school, went into and studied about 2 full years of mechanical engineering.
Huh.
At that point, I was like, not excited about it.
Yeah.
And
this is college.
This is college, and I
Okay.
just came really just like, I can't do this. And at that time, I actually had a conversation with the dean, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to go to the art school. And he's like, great, approved. So art had always been an interest in my life as well. So the visual aspects of all of art and creativity. So I ended up getting a degree of Bachelor in Science in Art. My emphasis was in jewelry and metalsmithing and glass blowing.
Cool.
Huh.
And also at that time, I became really interested in psychology.
Okay.
And I kind of became fascinated with Carl Jung, right? And I was into...
We were talking
Oh my
about
gosh.
Jung.
Our last episode was super Jungian, all about shadow work. It's no coincidence. Okay.
And that was just my own journey.
Right.
So after I finished school, I kind of went into this direction of working in the art world, always doing my own art on my own, but kind of doing more of the administrative business, all this math, all this, the administrative energy around helping people to put things
how you
together.
could get a job in art.
Yeah, exactly. How you make money.
Right, how you make money.
And then I worked in doing help curating for businesses, their art collections, all of that. Then I came to New York. That was in Seattle. I came to New York, and I started to work for this art conservator of contemporary art.
What year was this?
This was in 2002.
Okay.
So I met this wonderful man, and I just started to help him build his conservation business. He had been in Germany for years, and he had worked with all the top international artists in the world and helping them with materials and how do they preserve a donut and how do we do all of these things. And that was a super interesting job because I got to connect to all this creative part, meet all these artists that I had studied in school. It was like New York art world job.
Yeah.
In 2008, I was there, about 6 years. I started to get really kind of that burnt out, exhausted energy of, this doesn't feel right anymore.
Yeah.
It was a lovely job. It was lovely people. It was very civilized. We all sat and cooked and eat lunch together because he was European and that style of...
It was downtown somewhere?
It was in Chelsea in the Dia Art Museum.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And I loved all of that energy, but there was something that wasn't really... I was feeling unfulfilled. So in 2009, I started to have really intense stomach problems. Health crisis.
Okay.
Wow.
And at that time, in my stomach region, that chakra, there's a lot of blockage, a lot of anger, frustration, childhood stuff, a lot of energy. One morning I woke up, I thought I was having appendicitis.
Wow.
I spent 12 hours at NYU dismissing me with like, you're totally fine. And I was kind of like, okay, what's going on here?
Wow.
And this experience, now looking back, really shaped a lot of how I think about energy and what happens, because I lived this intense pain that nobody could have any idea. Like, there's nothing. So I went to gynecologist. I did an endoscopy, GI doctors. I went to specialists. I went to every other thing that my doctor would say, hey, go here, go here, go here.
Right.
And then at that time, one of my really good friends was working for this healer. His name's Abdi Asadi. He's here in the city. And he said, go see Abdi. He's an acupuncturist. He's going to help you. And so in 2009, I went and saw him. And he just about half an hour described my whole life and like,
really,
what was wrong.
Did he read your chart?
He just read my energy.
Wow.
And then he gave me acupuncture.
Mm-hmm.
And I left, and pain gone, never came back.
You
after
just
that
went
session.
to one session?
Yep.
I wish people could
Both
see
of our
Celine's face. We were just like, what? Okay.
And that taught me about energy and how much emotional energy we carry and how that affects our body. Right?
Whoa. Can I interject or ask a question?
Yeah.
Was this related at all age-wise to like a Saturn return, or did you look at your chart afterwards and see like some kind of transit that was occurring corollary to that?
Yes, absolutely. I had a huge transit. It was a convergence of Neptune, which is a 168-year cycle.
Okay.
Jupiter, a 12-year cycle. The nodes of karma, a 19-year cycle.
So it all happens.
It all kind of converged at that moment.
Wow.
And later, when I looked at my chart, what was going on, of course, working backward, it was so obvious in my chart of that moment, and meeting especially him and my journey. So after that session, things started to change very quickly in my life because I feel like just so much energy got released. Right? Yeah. Like this blockage and this energy. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start working on my art more. I got a whole shift. Well, 3 weeks later, my friend called me and said, I can't be Abdi's assistant anymore. Do you know anyone who will work for him? And then I was on the corner, North 4th in Bedford, and I was like, me. And I went straight to my job and quit. And they were all like, what? I mean, this was, pretty cushy job, high paid, 5 weeks vacation, benefit. Like, it was a really great environment. And I was like, that's it, I'm out.
You made the jump.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I went, finished up my 2 weeks there, and then I went to work for Abdi. And it was also really funny because I said to my friend, does he want me to come in for an interview? And he's like, yeah, no, you're hired. Just show up.
He already met you.
Yeah, he was like...
He knew.
Yeah, he knew. He was
That's so interesting and cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the second day I was there. He worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So
dreams.
The second day I was there, something really interesting also happened that I remember very clearly. I remember walking in, it was this beautiful space on 20th between 5th and 6th. Beautiful wood. It had this view of the Empire State Building. He had 3 treatment rooms in there in his office. And it was just beautiful in there and energy. And so that second day I was there, I was like, this is my life. And it was super clear. I want to work with people, help people. I want to have these interactions one-on-one. I want to help people in some way that I can, how is that going to happen? I don't know, but this is what I want. I'll see clients all day. And then on the weekend, he would go upstate and ride motorcycles. And I'm just like, okay, perfect. 3 days work, 4 days upstate. I was like, this is my life. And I really feel like that alignment of energy at that moment is what brought astrology into my life.
Okay.
Did he also get into astrology, or how did you pick that, or it found you?
It found
as you
me.
said before.
Yeah. So I had my previous boss in the art conservation. We had decided to get him a present, and he was very into tarot. So I just looked online for an astrologer. This woman, Rebecca Gordon, she has a school here in New York called My Path Astrology, and just picked her online and got him a gift certificate. When I was leaving, they gave me a reading as a gift. Because it was also right after my birthday. So they gave me a reading as a gift with her.
Okay.
So I went into that session with her.
This is your first time ever getting
First time ever getting a reading. And she just banged it out. She was like, boom, X, Y, Z, this, your patterns, your energy. And it just blew my mind. I was like, especially when she got to the point talking about my family, because I had a really intense family story. And Saturn, the planet of lessons and learning, my 4th house. So right away, she just went in and started talking about my family, and I was just like, how does she know?
Yeah.
Like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So after that session, I just kind of was like, oh, I'm going to study my own chart. I need to kind of, while I was working at Abdi's, I was like, helping him, just his assistant with his schedule and everything. It also gave me time to just, I had a lot of time to read and to be there. So I started my own exploration of my chart.
Right.
And then how astrology really found me is also a funny story.
Yeah.
Woo story.
Yeah.
There was a client who would come in to see him, and he worked for a big broadcasting media company, and he really liked me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little creepy. Too much.
Oh.
So when he would come in for his sessions, I was like, oh my God, I kind of got to get out of here because this guy is a little intense.
Yeah.
I don't love that.
But one day he came for session, and I was coming back from the lunch break, and I decided I just have to kill some time before he leaves.
Right.
And I was just walking around the block on 20th and 21st, just kind of doing a loop to just, get some air and wait. And I walked up and I looked down, and there was a huge box, and it was full of all the classic astrology texts.
I mean, come on. Come on.
On 20th in
That's why
Manhattan.
New York is so great.
Or just being like in the right time at the right space and being available and like trusting you're going to get what you need to get where you need to go.
I just picked up that book and I was like, oh, wow. So I just dove into all those books.
Yeah.
And all the classic astrology books. And then I decided, I need some guidance.
Right.
I need help, a teacher, a mentor. And then I remembered, Rebecca does this class, this school.
Oh.
And she teaches it out of her living room in Brooklyn.
Cool.
So I signed up for her beginning class and then her intermediate class. And my own study, my own going in and researching and looking at charts. She's such an amazing teacher. Once I took those classes with her, everything started to click.
Wow.
It really, because I needed that mentor and that guidance in addition to like the words and the things that I was studying, right? So at that moment, with that class, I was just like, okay, this is it. And then after that class, I just started on every person's chart I knew. Right. Every friend, family, everyone. And then it's never stopped since then.
And then here you are now.
And here I am now.
And that was 2009.
Yes.
So it's been 10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's the story.
Wow.
I stopped working for Abdi at the end of 2012. He had decided to shift his office and see less patients. He was doing acupuncture for over 30 years, so he was kind of slowing down. And at that moment, I had an eclipse in my house of career. And he came in and he said, okay, at the end of the year, you're done. And I said, wait, done what? And he's like, done here. And I said, what am I going to do? And he said, now you're an astrologer. And
Well, yeah.
yeah. And then I was like, okay, I guess that's what's happening now. And so that eclipse is also very scary in my life, but life-changing.
Right.
Yeah.
And about, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks later, a friend of mine introduced me to Lisa at Maharos.
Oh, right.
2 or 3 weeks later.
Yep.
Jeez, you're really good. You're really good.
And I think, again, like, Celine, I really feel like it just came from that heart place.
I know, it
That
just seems there's like
intention.
not a lot of resistance towards moving forward.
Yeah,
which
and
is
that's why
so
the
cool.
flow and the lineup and the things just kept, because I was so excited, I was coherent, that we talk
Yeah.
about mind and heart, and it was just so exciting for me. And then I've officially started really practice in 2013.
Wow.
At that time, I was doing charts before then, but then it really kind of like from that point evolved then to where it is today.
Yeah, that's just incredible.
And you still do. So you do those workshops at Maharos.
Yes.
Okay.
I
And
teach
for
classes.
people who don't know, Maharos is a Greenpoint like woo-woo institution.
Yeah. Workshops, yoga classes, acupuncture,
Yeah.
Reiki.
Yeah.
So can you explain to people who don't know anything about like a natal chart, a birth chart, what that actually means and what's your sort of like basic structure of reading a chart
Yeah.
for the norms?
So what a natal birth chart is really the picture of the sky. Everybody else say, oh, it's the snapshot of a sky. Okay. And how I talk about it is that at the moment you're born, when you are separate from your mom, your own energy field, aura, prana, chi, all the things we call it, is set in its energetic makeup. And that moment, there is a chart of what was happening in the sky. Where were all the planets located? So everybody's going to know what their sun sign is in their chart, because that's their birth. That's the zodiac. We have the horoscopes. But all the planets also were in another location. So
Right.
the chart is a map of the sky and a picture of that moment. So when we pull up a chart, we pull up the date of your birth, the year, the month, the date, the year, the exact time that you were born, and the location. And that is the alignment of energy. So in that chart, it holds an understanding of your vibrational pattern. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at this map, we're looking at it as a description of energy. The alignment of the chart the moment you're born, I always tell clients, it takes another 25,000 years to replicate over.
Really?
Yeah. So it's that
energy.
same moment and that same sky. So we come into this life with very strong patterns of expression, things that we are really good at, and energies that we kind of, again, oh, I'm just so good at this. Oh, this is a pattern. I've been doing it. there are lessons that everybody are going to learn and evolve. So also in a reading, I'm always telling people we're here to love. We're here on Earth. It's beautiful. It's to have fun, enjoy. And the rest is managing our energy. We have to manage our energy.
So just like a little background, like both Celine and I have gotten readings with Leslie now.
And so is like my entire family and basically all our friends.
Basically all of our friends, yeah. Leslie's been making the rounds. But yeah, I remember you said that. The other thing you said, I wish I could re-listen to the reading right now because I recorded it, but kind of what you're talking about with, I'm just going to give you a break. You've been talking a lot, but just to kind of contextualize some things. A lot of people, I think, when they look at astrology, they just see like, oh, I'm a this, I'm a that, and which is your sun sign, right?
Yes.
So that's the sign. When you're born, the sun is within that sign.
Yes. From our perspective on Earth, the zodiac is projected out around us. So Western astrology has the viewpoint from our perspective on Earth. Where was the sun against the backdrop of that zodiac?
Right. And so that's like what most people understand as astrology.
Yes.
What then, when you start to actually get into astrology and you learn about a natal chart, a birth chart, is that, like you're saying, every single planet is actually in a specific place in the sky.
Correct.
And so all of those things are actually affecting who you are as an individual.
Exactly.
So these generalizations of like, I'm a Gemini and you're a Gemini, oh, but like you're different than me. It's, well, there's so much more going on than just your sun sign.
Exactly. It's very complex and there's lots of layers of understanding our psychology.
Right.
And so that natal chart describes that energy, and how I look at the chart as each planet is a representation of an archetype we live out. And most people in their life, you know, as you go on your journey, have an understanding of like, oh yeah, these are the things I vibrate towards. These are the things I get, or I'm, you know, connected towards. And, you know, those patterns are in the chart. You know, people's strong musical talents, people's strong mathematical talents, they're all a description of the energy. And I always say astrology is just another language. It's another way, a sacred language to describe patterns.
Right.
And nature is all patterns, right? Yeah. We see the cosmic spiral everywhere.
Right.
So we kind of get really hooked into living in a linear time fashion.
Yeah.
And astrology is all about the circles and the cycles and the spirals.
Because it's based on the wheel, the chart, and like 12 houses.
Yep, the 12 houses.
And then you'll have different aspects in each house.
Yep. And so natal chart reading, I'll sit down with somebody, pull up the chart, and then I'll just really break it down into terms of what's the energy, what's the patterns, what, again, are your gifts, what are your strengths, what are you working on? And then where it gets really beautiful is to see where is someone in their current cycle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say all the clients who come to me have a transit, which is a planet in the sky today impacting your energetic imprint.
The natal
chart.
Right.
So the easiest transit to identify is every year when it's your birthday. The sun matches up to your sun. Oh. And it's your solar return and it's your birthday. So we have all these different cycles that we're in as we go on our journey. And what cycle are you in? What period of growth relates to how the planet currently is impacting your natal chart too?
Right.
It's so complex.
Yeah. I have like a few things I want to ask. maybe I still want to start with kind of, I didn't get to it, but the way you described like the moment of your birth, because when we had our reading, or my reading, when you gave me my reading, you talked about how, like, you know, people will get like C-sections, or like the doctor will be late or something like that. And it's like, regardless of all of those circumstances, I don't know how you phrased it, but it was so amazing. It was like, your consciousness is like now, like right now, like this is my moment. I'd just love for you to literally talk about that a little bit more. This idea of like our energy, we choose to release from the mother's womb and become our own energy at that moment. Just expand on that, because there's just something really powerful there.
Yeah, I think it's like saying, I say that we qualify for Earth.
Right.
So the moment that the alignment of the energies in the pattern, I really look at astrology from an evolutionary, esoteric point of view, where we've had many lives before.
Right.
Okay.
So what does that look like? How does that look like? Well, we just know consciousness and energy, not created, not destroyed, just transformed. Right. And so in some way, our consciousness existed before, and our consciousness will exist again. How do we know? No one has the exact answers on any of that. Right.
Right.
But looking at a chart and thinking about experiencing Earth in many different lives, and how we get patterned to be really good at something, and how we are at something, that's an energy we've carried, we've worked on, we've developed. So what energy is going to be expressed in this life? The alignment of planets holds that vibrational field. So I look at it as being very purposeful when we're born. And even when I'm working with, people who are about to have a baby, I'm just always like, they're just waiting for their alignment.
Yeah.
And when is the energy aligned for their consciousness to step into that vibrational field of its expression?
Yeah.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Did you ever read Esoteric Acupuncture?
No.
By Miko? I talk about it in one of our episodes because he talks about reincarnation in this esoteric way where you jump into a setup, which is what you're saying, an alignment, versus the energy creating that, and it's a new phase kind of. So I don't know, that just reminded me of that, because I've never been able. That was a really good way to describe what I've never been able to describe before.
Yeah.
And that's why, so we also look into chart, it's interesting because we kind of put this thing on children as like, oh, they're just coming to this and, they're just this blank slate and they have nothing and like everything gets put onto them. But then we see children with like highly like reading, writing, speaking, young, early. And I look at their chart and their Mercury is highly developed. Like Mercury rules communication. This is a soul energy who has worked on their field of expressing and communicating themselves. And that's why in some ways, even early on in life, it's very easy, Right. And so that moment is kind of, like I said, when I feel like I look like we qualify to be here for our energy. Yeah. I also look at the chart as us choosing our parents in terms of our lineage, our mom and our dad. That also is something that I go into in a reading, looking at the story, the patternings with father figure, mother figure too. So I like to just say we have that DNA or genes from the mother and father and coming together. Well, we have those energetic patterns too. So when I look at family constellations, which is the whole chart of a whole family.
Whoa, you read whole families?
Yeah, like a mom, a dad, two children.
What?
Wow.
you see the patterns. It's very obvious. And then all of a sudden you'll look and you'll be like, oh, this, the daughter looks just like the father, and there's like this energy, and you'll see the patterns of similarities in their charts, or how they're very different, like that energy. So the patterns of how we are also carried through our lineage too.
Is that the north and the south node? Or is that when you talk about the karmic nodes?
Yeah, the karmic nodes.
And so that's what we bring in or carry
Our
with
patterning.
us.
Can I back up for a second? I want to get to the karmic nodes, but I think I'd like to start with the planets first.
Sure.
Just because I feel like the nodes feel like a step further.
Well, it's kind of what she was saying about the those are what you bring in.
Right.
Patterns.
The pattern. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah, the
patterns.
What you're saying, both in the planets and the nodes, and just to give people a sense, because the planets, most people know what all the planets are, right? We look at the sun and moon as luminaries. Okay,
Right.
Mercury, Venus, Mars. We have all our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify the nodes are points that are calculated in space, where the moon, the earth, the orbits cross each other. In astrology, the nodes talk about the patterns we're good at, the south node, and the growth in our life. But what's interesting, you guys are both kind of on the same thing, is that let's say we have a pattern in our life where it's really difficult for us to speak our truth.
okay.
Right? Like our throat chakra, we're totally blocked. We have a lot of hard time, maybe even in school, speaking, talking. As we get older, we kind of carry that into our work, and it's kind of can inhibit us. Parts, you'll see the story of this work reflected in the chart with the planets and the nodes. Like the energy will describe that work. I always say I can look at a chart. You won't know, is this the female? Is this the male? Is this color, race, class? But I'll know if you have dad issues.
Awesome.
So the patterning of what we are good at is expressed through our nodes,
Right. So
our
they're
south
like
nodes.
together.
Yeah, and also some of the patterns of the planets too.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the south node, we're talking about. I mean, I want to talk more about the planets, but so the south node is essentially like we're really good at it. We've been doing it for a number of lifetimes.
Yeah.
And like the north node is like aspirational, or where you're like aiming for as a soul, like you're trying to go for this kind of
Evolution of growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever. And we're on Earth. We're in school. I mean, like school's in,
I totally think so. I mean,
like the classes in. Like we're here.
classes in session.
We're here to learn and to grow.
Yeah.
So there are fundamental things that our soul wants to evolve and wants to grow. Our North Node is showing us, how do we get there? What's the action of growth for us? And it tends to be something that's very uncomfortable because we are almost mastery at the patterns of our South Node. And they're always 180 degrees opposite each other. So they're always two signs, Cancer, Capricorn, Pisces, Virgo. And so there's always this duality, Aries, the opposite of Aries, Libra, right? And so the nodes are always going to be in two signs. The South Node, again, is that energy that's very comfortable, we're good at it, but it also feels that those patterns can become very stagnant.
Okay.
Because they're what we're good at, what we've been working on. But the evolution is the opposite. Let's say our South Node's in Aries. Oh, the evolution is to go into Libra, right? And to go into
So
something
interesting.
that's a little bit uncomfortable. Someone who would have a South Node in Aries would have an incredible sense of independence. Aries is pioneering, independent. These are the patterns of energy Aries expresses, right? And Libra is about partnerships. So someone who's very patterned to be on their own and independent can go repeat these patterns where they just think it's just them and they have to do it all on their own. Well, the growth is letting someone help you, Libra, working with people. So the nodes talk deeper about that story. If someone is really on their own and the super independent person, it's going to show in the pattern of the chart really like 5 different ways, right? That will all confirm this is part of that soul's journey.
I see. Okay.
And the South Node being one big indicator.
Now, I'm curious if you see any corollary between that and just to relate to our episode that just came out today about shadow work. So this idea of like South Node, North Node, like maybe the North Node, I don't know if it's your shadow or no, maybe not.
I mean, maybe, but shadow is more about the individual's more like unconscious desires, kind of like shame, not so much of
an aspirational type of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe.
Curious.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like our, the shadow work that person has to do in discovering their unconscious motivations, right? Yeah. So what are our unconscious motivations? Well, some of those are things that are driving us towards things that aren't really best serving us or others. That's the shadow comes in because it's not, it's a pattern and it's an energy, but the growth is to moving towards something. Everyone carries different energies around what they have to work on. So the chart will expose that energy and explain and kind of go into an analysis of your psychology and your. So let's say if your shadow, revolves around something like addiction to technology and your phone. Okay, like this is a thing everyone's dealing with.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But let's say it's really taken a hold of your life.
Right.
This is part of your shadows. Like you are on your phone 24/7. You can't do anything. You have to check it. You have this incredible hold on this energy. What is the unconscious motivation for you having to constantly connect and to have this thing where anything can really be addictions? It's just something that takes hold of us in such a different way, right? Well, in a person's chart, their Neptune is going to be very active. There are going to be indicators about addicted tendencies, right? Okay. And their shadow tendencies. How it expresses itself is always a person's individual choice. Okay.
Right. I loved when you did my reading, I loved how every single sign had like a lower vibration expression and a higher vibration expression.
And that could be kind of shadow stuff too. If you're on your lower vibration in
maybe
your
that's a better way of putting it.
Totally.
Then that's a little shadowy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. I love that because we now, like all this new technology, everything, like we measure someone in love, right, in a love vibration. Well, it actually reads as a high vibrational field, right? And when we read someone who is stressed and firing all their hormones and fear, it reads as a low vibrational field. Right. So, I think what you're saying about like some of that shadow work is where are we going into the lower vibrations of that energy? Right. And it's up to our choice, the choices we make. And one of the key like intentions of my work is really helping people to understand, sometimes what is like kind of driving the shadow, like why are they stuck in that lower energies, right? Or what's active through patternings from family, childhood, culture, like that they are like kind of ready to see, but then liberate.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
To be aware. Because I feel like when we've had our readings, it's been an awareness of a pattern.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely holding myself in this structure.
Yeah.
And that awareness is everything.
Yeah.
I also tell people, you know, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't really know, you know, in a reading.
Yeah.
Everything I'm going to talk about, you know, intimately, but the gift of astrology is the awareness and it being a tool to understand it. Not an excuse or, oh, well, you know, this is hard for me, whatever. But no, this is hard. This is my work. This is where I have to evolve. And that awareness, I just see in my clients, creates incredible shifts in their life because they have the dark and they make it light, you know, and they really see it.
Yeah. You know what I feel like you should ask about is that question about the symbology of the planets.
Yeah. So this is going really amazingly well, and we're going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for the sake of other people's time, we usually don't go above an hour. So this is going to be part one of probably a part two situation.
Yes.
So thanks for listening.
Yes. Thanks for being
and
here.
stay tuned for part two
Yes.
next week.
Perfect.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.